And the Senate preparing to vote on a $1 trillion infrastructure bill.
The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says the bipartisan deal is on a glide path to pass tomorrow. It includes hundreds of billions of dollars in new spending for items like roads, bridges, and internet access. It's one of the top priorities of President Biden's agenda. The Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, has been traveling to different towns across the nation to boost public support for the president's infrastructure plan. I sat down with him today in Westfield, New Jersey.
So we've waited administration after administration. What's your confidence level that sometime tonight we'll get through the Senate and move this on toward law?
Looks like it's going to happen. We don't know exactly what hour, but we know that we're within hours of seeing this through in the Senate, then on to the House, and the sooner it can get to the president's desk for a signature, the better. You know, my department is ready the moment this bill becomes law to start deploying these resources and getting them out to communities, mayors like the ones I was meeting with today, to start making immediate improvements in the transportation infrastructure that every American depends on.
What will people in cities and towns across the country see in the early going?
Well, you're going to see quicker improvements and fixes on your roads. You're going to see projects to get your bridges back in shape. If you live near a port, you're going to see funding for ports. But if you don't live anywhere near a port, you're still going to be better off, because it's actually in places like the Midwest where I'm from that so much depends on being able to get agricultural products, for example, out efficiently, which isn't always possible with the supply chain backups we have. So this whole country, this whole economy is linked in terms of air and rail, water, roads. Everything fits together. And frankly, everything needs more work. That's why this bill tries to look at everything from traditional, roads and rail and bridges to recognizing that internet infrastructure is just as important in the 2020s as highway infrastructure was in the 1950s.
In Washington, this really did sort of show this divide between the left and the center of the Democratic Party. What's your level of concern about getting the rest of this agenda through?
Well, we've always been a big tent, and that's one of the things I appreciate about my party. But also we're in this extraordinary moment where you saw in the Senate progressive Democrats and conservative Republicans coming together in an overlap. Nobody got absolutely everything they wanted, but they came together and said, we've got to do this. Just like out in society, you had some unlikely partners from the Chamber of Commerce to the AFL-CIO saying, yes, let's do this. I think that same momentum is going to carry us through the House. And I'll tell you, I'm on the phone every day with members of both chambers and both parties to make sure we can see this through.
There's a second piece of this plan, and it's a very big piece. Is that the best way to get this done? And are you concerned about, people starting to look at the money and saying, this is a lot?
Well, there's a lot, but it's a lot because we need a lot. And what we can't afford is to do nothing or keep up this business as usual and expect things to improve. Now, there are a lot of different ways to get there, but the path we're on is this. There's part of the president's economic vision that it looks like there's strong bipartisan agreement on. So we're going to do that part together. And then there's another part that it might be harder to win Republicans over to support, although I still hope they will. That has to move in a different package. So we have two packages, but they add up to one vision. And that vision is to make American families and communities better off by investing in our future.
The climate report from the UN you mentioned today, a stark reminder of where we are. Transportation is the biggest drain on this planet. U.S. Transportation Secretary, what's your role here? What should it be?
Here's the way I think of it. Transportation is the biggest sector in our economy when it comes to emitting greenhouse gases. So to me, that means we have to be the biggest part of the solution. And what's exciting about that, even though it's daunting, is that we can also create a lot of jobs as we go, whether it's jobs making the electric vehicles of the future that are going to provide clean transportation, or whether it's the jobs in the transit systems that we're funding that are going to help give people alternatives and take cars off the road. This is where we really get to break the old false choice of climate versus jobs and demonstrate that the only way to a safe, sustainable future is to create jobs through climate action and clean transportation.
What's the part of this legislation that's most exciting to you?
Well, to me, it is the job creation part of it, because that's going to mean something not just in the immediate fixing of the bridge or digging of the tunnel, but the long-term jobs that are supported, because people will be better able to get to work where they live. Whether the thing that is the biggest barrier to you is a road to get to your workplace or an internet connection to get you to a meeting, we're tearing down those barriers, and I think that's incredibly exciting. I would also say that this is really preparing us for the future. I want to be able to look back in 2050 at this work we're doing in the early 20s and say this was the moment when we chose to be responsible from a climate perspective, to retake the lead around the world when it comes to having the best transportation anywhere in the globe, and to prepare those jobs of the future that were going to fuel the economy that hopefully one day my grandkids are working in.
When you took this job, did you see this big opportunity for change?
Well, one of the things the president raised when he called to invite me to take on this job was that this was going to be a moment for transportation like none other. And I'm really encouraged that he's followed through on his commitment to make that a big deal. Now we're trying to follow through on our commitment to be ready to deploy and deliver those resources.
Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, heading kind of city to city to try to sell this enormous package. He's on his way to Illinois and Texas in the next couple of days. That today in New Jersey.